I heard stories this morning of the horrors and pains of residential schools that happened many years ago, in some cases generations ago, but that are every bit as present today as they ever were. As we reflect on truth and reconciliation, it's not just a thing of the past. It has articulations today in challenges that families are facing, challenges that communities are facing, and challenges that we are all facing.
Part of the address from the Prime Minister today, we're going to have most of that coming up later in the show just after 5 o'clock on Truth and Reconciliation Day. Right now, Jennifer Wood, who lives in Winnipeg and is a survivor. Can you pronounce the territory in Ontario you are from, Jennifer?
Neyaashiinigmiing, Ontario.
Neyaashiinigmiing. Okay. You're a survivor. My first question to you would be, having heard what the Prime Minister just started off with, and I don't know if you heard his whole address today, how did you react to what you heard?
I was very pleased with his words that he used today during his address to the survivors. You know, he admitted the wrongs, and he actually said that it's everyone's responsibility to come on board and to start looking at the truth and the the path that should be taken for Canadians to start understanding and looking seriously at the government. I'm glad because he is our Prime Minister, so I'm hoping that there'll be further action in his words in terms of contributing funding towards programs such as trauma and abandonment and parenting and disconnect.
Jennifer, I'm curious what you make of the fact that it's a little bit more subdued this year, and it seems to me that we should still be making a bigger deal of this. We should be taking the time to mark it and to remember and to move forward together. How do you feel about how things are being marked in general? I'm glad that you're pleased with what the Prime Minister had to say, but overall, how do you feel about how it's being commemorated?
Well, in our own province here, I mean, we still haven't made the holiday a statutory holiday, which we all were hoping that would actually have occurred by now. I mean, they each need the provinces to, have consensus with that. So, and also as well, in cities, I mean, there should be more of a prominence even in symbolism, like in the airports, in the legislators across Canada. I believe there should be monuments in each legislative grounds and show the monuments, and that to me is a tangible, thing that they could start to do now, and to implement courses into the institutions and education system and tell the real history, not what we've been taught our whole lives, and move on from there.
So do you get the sense that that's beginning to happen? Because I said, we were talking earlier on, and I said the one figure I took away from something I heard before today was that many more Canadians, and by many I mean 40% and over 90% now, are actually aware of what happened at residential schools. And as I said, step one is to acknowledge it. Do you take some heart in that?
I sure do. I certainly see that, and that I'm very happy about that. I mean, a year ago, you wouldn't have seen as many people wearing the T-shirt and wearing it with pride, and having their children wear it, and have the T-shirts hanging in their living rooms. I really believe that we're in an era of change. We're in an era of admitting that this actually occurred to the survivors, and what can we do about it as Canadians, as politicians, as civil citizens, and so forth. So I really think that we have to keep it up and in front of their face, and to remind them that we can't let this go hidden under the rug anymore.
Jennifer, can you tell us a little bit about what this day means to you, what you will be thinking about, what you will be remembering? And of course, we respect you only tell us whatever you're comfortable with talking about.
Yeah, I'm a third-generational survivor. My grandmother went, my mother went. 5 of my siblings were taken in a sweep of an afternoon. The youngest was at least 6 years old. My brother was abused and ran away and was made an example of, and they shaved his head, and then he ran away a second time and he got away. So that's what I'm thinking about, is how far we have come. I mean, looking at the legacy of the residential schools in Canada, and I'm a young survivor, and so this day to me is that I'm glad I'm alive to witness it, number one, and I'm glad that my children are alive to witness all of this, because they're getting educated. They're listening to what I'm saying. And we have a young generation coming up in the works, and they're going to be our leaders. They're going to be our examples of, how our country should treat people. So I think that those are steps, it's going to happen, but it's going to take time.
Can I ask you, as I hear you relate this about being a third-generation survivor, for people, you mentioned you have children. How do you explain this to your own children?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm the residential school coordinator in this province from 2006 for 10 years, and I've made a lot of presentations. It's still hard today. I did an interview the other day, and every time they ask me about what was your first day like, I just break down. And I met my husband at residential school, and they interviewed us together, and we both had a hard time speaking of our own experiences. So I want my children to know the truth. I want them to be able to speak up in class and not be ashamed. I don't want them to put their head down and look at their toes when they're talking about treaties in the classroom. I want them to put their head high and say, yes, I am Indigenous, and this is my homeland.
Oh, wow. That was beautiful. I hope for that too. I hope that for your children too, Jennifer. Mm-hmm. It makes me think, we've certainly, I feel like we're just starting to have those kinds of important conversations about intergenerational trauma. Do you hope that one day there truly will be reconciliation and it'll be easier for future generations, or is that almost too much to hope for?
I certainly see it coming. I mean, trauma was a big part of our lives due to the colonial impact imposed on our lives. I mean, we're starting to use the word trauma. We're starting to use the word abandonment. We're starting to look at, why we have so much homeless populations in our cities across our country. We're looking at the MMIW inquiry and the 60 Scoop and the Day Scholars and the 94 recommendations. If Canada, if the Pope can come here and apologize, and the Prime Minister is openly apologizing, certainly they can honor and keep their word and honor those 94 recommendations made by the TRC commissioners.
This has been going on now, talking about this for so many years, and the government has talked about it more and more and more, and you're talking about a fact that we still have to keep talking about this and initiatives by the federal government. Mm-hmm. Are you happy with the direction that's going? Because this seems to be moving still kind of slowly.
Well, I mean, as First Nations people, sadly to say, we're used to that. We're used to waiting and waiting and waiting. And so now here we are in 2022, the papal visit came and apologized to us, and I really think that, I would like to see some kind of legislation enacted. I'd like to see whereby we eradicate poverty, that we look at the substandard housing across Canada, that the government looks in our own backyard to our own people in our own homeland and start really assisting. Because I always ask myself the other day, why is the crime of the youth still escalating? Why isn't it going down? It's going higher and higher. What has to happen in Canada for the government to wake up?
Yeah, I
certainly understand that.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
Now, listen, we know that you would like for this to be a statutory holiday, coast to coast, every province on board. Yep. For anyone listening right now and thinking that they want to take a moment to mark this day, what would you say to them? What would you hope that they're thinking about today?
I hope they're thinking about that I'm going to go and I'm going to learn the real history. I'm going to go and look in my own backyard for whatever area they live across our land. I want to go and study the residential school that I drove by for 40 years of my life. I'm going to go and find and I'm going to start participating and attending cultural events and powwows and starting to really learn and appreciate our Indigenous people, because there is such a perception. And how do you break a colonial perception that has been in existence for 150 years? It's not an easy task to do. So I'm hoping that Canadians will really step back and say, you know what, I want to talk to my children. I want to talk to my family. I want to talk to my MLA and my member of parliament. And I want to get them to say, you know what, getting acting and honoring those 94 calls to action, the TRC calls to action and the MMIW inquiry. Really look into those. I mean, we're still waiting on a lot of recommendations from the Royal People's Commission. Mm-hmm. Honor them. This is our homeland. The abuses happened to us. Let's keep that in mind.
Jennifer, I want to thank you. We want to thank you so much for taking the time today and for speaking so eloquently and passionately about this day on National Truth and Reconciliation Day, and wish you nothing but the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Too.
Jennifer Wood with the Neyaashiinigmiing tribe, the Ojibwe tribe in Ontario. Pretty powerful stuff. And it's interesting, you know, when she said it's still difficult for them to talk to each other about some of the trauma of what happened so many years ago. I think that kind of sends a message. And the idea is we need to think about this on a day like today. But as she said, beyond thinking about it, we need to keep moving forward because it's taken a long time just to get to where we are now.